Hello and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture we're going to take a look at cryptographic interfaces. We will understand how to define the security of cryptographic schemes with respect to games. And finally we will take a look on how to prove the security of cryptographic schemes. So stay tuned. So one of the major tasks in modern cryptography is to understand where is the security actually coming from. And in order to do so, we are following a certain blueprint. And this blueprint consists of the following steps. First of all, we're going to define the interface of a cryptographic scheme. What is the interface? Well, the interface actually describes how you can interact with a cryptographic primitive. So we're going to do this with the following easy example here. So let's take a look. So what you can see here is the main application of old-fashioned cryptography, which means we have two parties, Alice and Bob, that wish to communicate securely. And how do they do it? Well, first of all, they need to have a way in order to encrypt certain information. And the cryptographic interface essentially exactly describes how this operation can be done and which algorithms perform these operations. So let's take a closer look. Well, first of all, we have here Alice, and Alice wishes to encrypt a message. And in order to do so, of course, Alice needs a cryptographic key. And this is the key that is initially shared between both Alice and Bob. So at this moment, we essentially don't care where this key is coming from, and in this high-level description, we just assume that we have it. So now Alice wishes to turn the plaintext M into some ciphertext C. And the way she does it is actually by using the encryption algorithm. So as you can see here, Alice essentially takes as input the message M, which is also called the plaintext, the key K, and then she's applying the encryption algorithm in order to derive the ciphertext C. So this is the first algorithm that we need in order to convert a plaintext into a ciphertext. On the other side, of course, Bob needs to be able to do the reverse operation. And it basically looks very similar, which means Bob is taking as input also the shared key K and now the ciphertext C, and when he's performing the decryption operation, he's getting back the plaintext M. So these are the two main algorithms that we have in a private key encryption scheme. Obviously, as we said before, the key must come somewhere, and this is usually expressed in terms of a key generation algorithm. So the way we work in cryptography is by first of all looking at these intuitive pictures and understanding, okay, these are the intuitive operations that we would like to have. And now, similar to the case of programming, we are now turning this informal description into a certain formal language. And this is the interface that we define. So let's take a look how the interface that we intuitively described actually compares to its formal description. And this is what you see here. The basic thing that we're doing is essentially mapping these intuitions one by one. So as you can see here, we have the key generation algorithm, and the key generation algorithm in general takes either the security parameter as input, or sometimes we just say it samples from a certain space, and then it essentially computes a cryptographic key K. Again, the question how this key is shared between Alice and Bob, we don't care at this moment, we will take a look at it later. Afterwards, right, when you are going to take a look at the encryption algorithm, we're essentially taking this picture here from Alice, where she's just performing the operation on a box, and we're converting this into more formal language that precisely describes the input and outputs. And this brings us to the definition of an encryption algorithm. Analogously, we're defining the decryption algorithm, which again looks essentially very similar as we discussed before. So to sum up, what we will do in the first step is we're taking this informal description, this picture, where we are trying to express what is actually going on, and then we are turning this informal description into a very precise language that exactly says what are the inputs, what are the outputs, and how's the behavior of these algorithms. Finally, in the last step, we actually have to describe what does it mean for an algorithm to function. And to function essentially means to do what the algorithm actually is supposed to do. This is expressed in terms of the correctness definition, or sometimes also called completeness. This essentially says what is an honestly expected behavior. And in our case, it's quite easy. It essentially means whenever I encrypt a message with a key honestly, which means I'm running the honest algorithm, then I obtain the ciphertext. And if I plug in the ciphertext back again into the decryption algorithm, then what I get is the plain text again. So this describes or finishes essentially the description of the interface of an encryption scheme.